Isabel for that great introduction. And thank you everyone for joining, coming to see us today. I feel a little bit, well, lots of different emotions, but blessed. I've been asked to talk about fossils, and it's my favorite thing in the world. So, you know, you may have to stop me at the end. I might just keep going, but what we were hoping to talk through today, I'll call it the agenda here. We want to talk about all the fossils that are found on the island. And what we've learned since we opened the Fossil Center is a lot of people know about shark's teeth, but they don't know about all the other fossils on the island. So we really want to talk about the whole range of fossils that are on the island and just get people understanding the wealth of treasure that we have here. I'm going to start by going through what we've got on the island, giving you some information, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. And we also have brought some hands-on, some fossil samples for you to look at. So we'll pass those around. And then at the end, we'd love it for people to come up. I heard already some people brought some fossils for us to look at and ID. So bring them all up and we'll show you, you know, how we ID them. We have our ID experts here. So we'll go over that at the end. So that's basically how we plan to do things. But I wanted to start first with some questions for you. So we want to try to answer some questions, but I have some questions for you, and specifically, I'm curious, is anybody here a fossil hunter? Has anybody hunted fossils?
Everybody.
Everybody? Okay. Right? So maybe just shout out, what's your favorite fossil?
Shark's teeth.
Anybody else?
Same.
Did I hear woolly mammoth?
Camel too.
Camel, cool.
T-Rex.
The what? Trilobite. Yeah, cool.
Meth monkey. Horse teeth.
Yes, awesome. Okay. I'm delighted to hear that there's more than just shark's teeth responses here. Anything else? Anyone else?
I have an ammonite.
Oh, yes, me too. That's close to my heart. The ammonites. Yeah.
I have porpoise bones.
Oh.
Which bone?
Porpoise.
Oh, okay.
About the nature place. We had discussed it a long time ago where it was.
Cool. That's awesome.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I should have said that in the materials. I should have told everybody to bring their things so we could all share. So one of the things that we've really loved about having the Fossil Center is that people have brought their things. So we've had the pleasure of just getting to see what's on the beaches and see what people are finding, which has really been awesome. So I'll give just a little bit of information here, and I'm going to start with us, with the team. And the reason I want to do that, I'll give you a little bit of history, is because Isabel asking me to speak about all the fossil treasures on the island is really dear to my heart, because my personal journey was, as she said, I was finding these fossils and not knowing what they were, and so trying to ID them. So I want to give you some sense of the scope of my journey, but then we'll also talk about some of the other things that we're doing at the Fossil Center, and then get into talking about some of the fossils specifically. So I'm Cheryl Wilson, as Isabel said. Up front, I have a team with me. We have Steve Sharp. He does the Shark Tooth ID app, and I don't know if anybody's seen that. We have
some cards to pass out.
Yeah. Okay, good.
It's really awesome. So he does all the photos himself. They're all Amelia Island and local photos. Just a really great resource.
And it's free.
And free, yes. And then we have Stephen Corrigan. And Stephen is our ID expert. Oh, there's so many adjectives to describe him. But he really specializes in the unusual fossils, our shark's teeth, our megafauna, so the strange things that we find on the island, like your mastodon teeth.
On the island. What is that?
Whale vertebrae.
Yeah.
Whale vertebrae. What is that?
Whale vertebrae.
We will get, yeah, So we will give you a chance to come up and actually feel these. I mean, it's just amazing, especially the whale vertebrae, just, you know, how precious and how weighty it is. And then we have Jane here, Jane Baker. And Jane is our specialist in unusual objects. So anything kind of unusual, so you find like a fragment of a brick and you're like, what is this? And she says, oh, it's from this ship and it used to be ballast and they threw it overboard. It was a roof tile in France. And you're like, okay. But she's been really great too in kind of helping us identify all of our beachcombing finds, which is kind of our theme. We're about more than just collecting a fossil, but really understanding about the island and everything that's there. So this is a really dense slide. You don't have to read it. I'll just skip over it quick and we'll go to the good parts. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my journey and how Fernandina Fossils started. And as Isabel said, I came to the island in 2018. And I'm an avid sheller, and I was finding these beautiful shells. And actually, I keep one in my pocket all the time. So, yeah. And so I was finding these shells, and they weren't in any of my shell books. So I went to the Jacksonville Shell Club, and I said, what is this? You know, it's not in my books. And they said, it's a fossil. These are extinct. And so I said, well, what is it? They said, we don't know, but it's a fossil. So that really started this long journey for me when I wanted to identify these and find out what they were. And I realized there was just a big gap in knowledge. And there's lots of studies where they talk about these. These are called pecten shells, or chest pecten. And they have studies of these up in Maryland, the Carolinas, and South Florida, but there's nothing in this area between. So that's why I couldn't find anything about it and why I ended up having to go up north and then down south to talk to scientists until I was able to identify them. So it took about, it was about 2022 when I finally had the majority of these identified. So it took 2 to 4 years. And hounding people, they started ghosting me because I was sending them all the notes and saying I know this, and but eventually in 2022 I had ID'd them enough that I could do ID cards, and I put those on your chairs. And as I wanted to share my knowledge, the things that I had learned with people, because I knew there wasn't anything out there, and people started asking me, what is this? And, so I created the cards really out of that. In 2024, I finally was able to convince the director of invertebrate paleontology at University of Florida to allow me to bring my collection and have him confirm the IDs, because I had IDs confirmed from all different scientists, but I really, before we opened the shop, I really wanted to know for sure that we had the IDs correctly. So he agreed I could come down and see him, and it was like my only chance, I thought, because I've been hounding him for years and hadn't gotten a response. So I took my entire collection, and it was 1,400. And I had a big Samsonite suitcase on wheels like this. So I showed up with this big suitcase, and he said to me, "Are you staying over?" And I said, "No, but I want to show you my collection." And he was beautiful. His name is Roger Portel. And he said, "Okay, let's use the freight elevator then." And so we just wheeled that suitcase in there and opened it up and spread everything out on a table. And it was so exciting because it was the validate. He was so excited to see these fossils because it's not in the record. And University of Florida, the only thing they had in their entire database of having been found on the island is shark's teeth. So they didn't know we had pectens. And when he saw them, it was so gratifying to me because he just kind of grabbed my hand and he said, look, I want to show you something. And we went into this other room where they had a paper about pectens. And he said, if we had known what you had now, this paper would have been entirely different because they had just information north and south and nothing in between. So we're really filling in this gap, which is so super exciting. So you'll see in the presentation all the time, I'll ask you, this is what I say constantly, bring and show us what you've got, because that really is just filling in that gap in scientific knowledge. What I did before I left, I left behind 100 or so pectins that are now in their collection. So if you go to the University of Florida fossil database, you see Amelia Island is known for having shark's teeth and pectin shells now. And what we're working on now is there's so many other fossils that aren't in their database. So that's kind of our next thing, is like we want to start donating some of these to them and really just build that record up. So, and one reason I think that research is so important and so exciting that University of Florida is doing is they're trying to work out how these fossils went extinct, why they went extinct, and that is helping them to protect the current shells from going extinct. So it's a really kind of exciting field, that good work that they're doing, and you know, we're all kind of part of it by sharing this knowledge. So that was my journey, and I created the ID cards, and I was doing a lot of online sales, and I was in Fort Clinch in the store, and and eventually decided that I wanted to start a brick and mortar place where people could come and actually see the collection and, you know, hands-on and talk to people. So in 2025 January, we opened up the shop. Along the way, I was fortunate enough to have met Amelia Island Jules, who's hiding in the back. Yes. But what Jules brought to the whole, to Fernandina Fossils was the whole element of really celebrating the fossils and all the artists who do things with fossils. And one of the biggest questions we have when people come into the Fossil Center is, what do I do with it? How do I display it? You know, I have all these cool things. What are they and what do I do with them? And Jules does this beautiful work where she'll make somebody's fossil into a piece of jewelry that they can wear, or a notebook, you know, a beautiful notebook that they can write on. We have these frames and a whole bunch of other things to show you here that are using fossils. So that was really as when I met Jules, and the vision really, the vision of the Fossil Center expanded from really just showing our fossils to showcasing all of our artists who are doing work with fossils and who love fossils. And then I met Steve and you know, the miscreants up front here, and you know, it has really evolved. We also have a number of experts that we work with. So in addition to the connections that we have with University of Florida, if there's weird things that we can't ID, we have access to them. And there's a number of local experts too that have been part of our team. Rihanna Boudreau is one of them, and she's well known in the community and has been just marvelous with sharing the knowledge. I think the most exciting thing about actually establishing the Fossil Center was unexpected to me. It started and I thought, oh, I'm going to show my fossils to everyone. You know, and I had an okay collection. It was pretty decent, but once we put my fossils out and people started coming in, they were saying things like, oh, you know, that whale tooth you have is kind of wimpy. Do you want to show my whale tooth? And it was beautiful because it ended up from being these cases that were just mine, it's this community collection now with contributions from everybody, including these guys. So it's just really a neat thing because now we can show, you know, really great examples of the different fossils. And we have one case that we dedicate to local collections. So each month we have a new local who shows their collection of fossils, and lots of really cool and unusual things, and that way everybody gets to see them. So it's really spectacular. The other part of that is very selfish on our part, but we're IDing things for people. They're bringing them in, and we're getting to see what everybody has and kind of record that. So that's kind of how it's evolved and developed as we've been open for 6 months now. So that's it, but I wanted to tell you how my journey started with looking for pectins and IDing pectins, because that is what really caused our vision to be larger than just shark's teeth. You know, that's what caused us to really focus on the fossils and educating people about all the fossils.
Who does your Facebook page? Because that's marvelous. Your posts every day. Great job. Very
She
good.
is awesome. A woman of many talents. It's not me. You can tell mine from hers because mine are very amateur, and I have to ask everybody, what button do I push now? So, in terms of what kind of fossils we find, the photo is kind of blurry, but I wanted to show you again, you know, that range. And so we have primarily, I separated them into three classes. So we have the shark's teeth, fossilized pecten shells, and then what I'm calling Ice Age megafauna. And that is a term that really means just a big animal. And it's a great term to describe our fossils because we're really lucky on Amelia Island because we've got not just shark's teeth and sea mammals, but we also have land mammals. So we've got things like the mastodon and tapir and just all kinds of things that we'll get into and show you. So in addition to the main shark's teeth and the pectens, we have these amazing things. Most of our fossils are 23 to 5.3 million years old. A lot of things we have are from the Ice Age, so up to 10,000 years old. And that's kind of where the cutoff line is for fossils. Something has to be 10,000 years old or older to be considered a fossil. Okay, good. All right, so I will dive into, I did want to say this, that one challenge we have here on the island is, and if you've traveled other places looking for fossils, like you've gone to Peace River and different places, you can see the fossil in the soil, and that gives you clues to how old the fossil is and the identification. So part of the reason our job is hard here is we don't have that. The matrix gets washed away and things just wash up. So again, that's why having a large sample helps, because then we can, you know, compare them. I'm starting with pectens because they're my favorite. So these are the commonly found pectens on Amelia Island. Well, not all are common, but these are kind of the main 5 that I've been finding. This one here on the bottom, I've only found one whole specimen. I have, in addition to these that have been identified, there's maybe about 6 or 10 more that have been identified, but I still have another dozen that haven't been identified. And so I'm still hounding scientists trying to find, and most of those are because they're fragments. So, you know, if I don't have a whole specimen, it's really hard, or they're real small ones or something. So it's a work in progress.
What makes it a pecten?
What makes it a pecten? It's in the family pecten, or the genus pecten, and that is, it really is a term for fossilized scallop shell. And for it to be a pecten or a scallop, it has to have 2 valves. These obviously don't match, but you know, to give you the idea. So it's a bivalve like this, and they are also known for having these ears on the bottom. So that's kind of how you can
Back
tell.
in the day, did they actually have like a scallop? Do you
They
know?
did.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see in these shells what they call the abductor scar, which is where the little creature sat,
Okay.
which is super cool. If you look inside your fossil, you can see that mark where the creature was. These are kind of cool because they actually were some of the first scallops that swam. So they would drink in, breathe in, they would get water in, and then they would squirt it out. That would make them, you know, swim around. So it was kind of a cool thing.
How old are the fossilized pectens that you've been finding?
So most of our fossils are in this range. So Miocene to Pliocene, 23 to 5.3. The pectens oftentimes will be here, you know, on the older side. A lot of our shark's teeth will be sort of younger or more recent. So typically, everything we have is in this range, but occasionally there's older things. And then, as I said, there's younger things from the Ice Age that we found. But the pectens all went extinct well before the Ice Age. So so they are definitely older and not around anymore. So if you find one of these, it's definitely a fossil. And actually, I'll show you how you can tell. And we'll start passing these around to show you too, but our main pecten that we find on the island is this pecten septenarius. And you can tell these by the flat ribs on the front. So they're really, really flat. And when you look at it in profile, you see a little bit of a T shape or an overhang. And that is, I'd say, I guess, between 75 to 95% of our pectens are this variety, which is a septenarius. We're going to hand things around, and we're going to ask if you can send them down across over to the center section and then through this section, just so we're getting things moving.
I was just wondering, so a current scallop shell, I don't know what they look like. Are they anything similar?
I should have brought one. I should have brought a current one. A lot of people, we do find current ones, and a lot of people, it makes me mad. Actually, a lot of people, when these are posted and people say, what is it? Other people will respond and they'll say it's a lion's paw, which is a current scallop. And it does look a lot like a lion's paw because of those strong ribs, but it's not a lion's paw. So, but there is a scallop. I don't have a pointer, so, but there is a scallop that looks very similar to this that's still around now, and people eat it all the time. I think it's called the Atlantic Bay scallop or something, but that's the only one that even looks, similar to a current one. All the other ones are quite distinctive. One other thing, one other thing that's made it difficult to ID these is that we have a lot of really intermittent species. So in terms of age, the oldest scallops are the Jeffersonias here. And then they kind of split off into the septenarius, which we have a lot of, and the Madisonias. Some have more ribs, some have less ribs. But what we see on the island are this kind of mashup of these three. So it's really difficult for us to say this is this one is that one, because there's a lot of what they call intermediate species. Oh, you have a question?
How big do they get?
Oh! It's like you were waiting I was waiting for you to ask the question. This I find really, really exciting. So this is probably one of the larger ones that I found on the island. And when you read the research, they get 5 to 6 inches big. But this one, we just recently got this, and a diver found this for us. And in the St. Mary's River, really close to town, about 30 feet down. And what's so exciting to me about this is I find pieces of this, but I never find whole ones. But we find these pieces and like it was a big and gorgeous scallop, but just got broken up because they're very fragile. So to have the diver find it makes me think these are here, they're just getting broken before they get to us. So yeah, did you get all the scallops going? Okay, cool. Next. All right. Any other questions about pectens?
I was going to say, it is scallop season over in the
Oh.
area. If you've never done it, go do it. It's beautiful. You're finding Easter eggs in the water. And as you said, they swim. They can swim away from you. But if you're just resting and breathing, they've got blue eyes. All those.
Oh, yes. That's cool. That's awesome.
And they do look like that one.
Yeah.
Are they named after, did Thomas Jefferson ID them? or is
Yes.
that- Okay.
Yes. And the Jeffersonius is really, that one is a drawing. I had an artist paint the fossils when I did the ID card. So this is Courtney from Sterling Silver Studios who painted these. But I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Jefferson ID.
Oh, yes,
them
yes,
initially.
yes. So we have Jeffersonius and Madisonius. The Jeffersonius, which is what this is too, is the state fossil, I think, of Maryland or Virginia. But they did find them and named them. I don't know what septenarius came from. All right, so shark's teeth. when I first was finding fossils, and I still do, really just focus on the pectins. And I really didn't see the fuss about shark teeth. You know, everybody's finding shark teeth. I'm like, oh, they're little black triangles, you know, who cares? I got these beautiful pectins out there. But then I found that great white there, which is just spectacular. And once I found that, it's like, okay, I get it. You know, I see why people like shark's teeth. But these are the most common, well, not the most common, these are the teeth that are often found on the island, some more rare than others. We have about 12 or so species. Stephen has named our most common teeth the Fernandina 5, and they're the bull, lemon, tiger, great white, and the hemi. And then we also have the megalodon, the cow, and the Benedini that are more rare. Does everybody know what those are?
I found the cow shark.
Wow!
And it's intact.
Oh,
yeah. It's
wow!
about this big.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I couldn't believe it, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so for people's information, a cow would be much more rare than a megalodon. So to find a cow is, yeah, that's really spectacular, and I've never found one, so kudos to you. That's still on my bucket list.
I was wondering, are any of the sharks' teeth from like sharks that are like current?
Yes, yeah,
So
a lot of
you have
them.
to kind of identify that they're not really a new living or.
We know that they're based upon the color, so it's very rare to find current teeth. And the reason is when
That's a good thing.
Yes, you're right, yeah.
When you're swimming in the ocean.
Yeah, it is. It is good to know that. So many of the darker teeth that you find are typically fossils because they've sat in the sediment and they've absorbed the sediment. So if you find a white tooth, typically it is a current tooth or something that sat in chalk or limestone or something.
Excuse me, I don't know what a Benedini is.
Oh, let's go back. That is my picture of a Benedini is not really awesome. It's a really wicked looking tooth. It's got this beautiful curve. Do we have some? Did we bring a Benny?
We didn't bring the Benny. The Benedini teeth are a lot more rare, and a lot of people don't know about them because everything that we find washes up on our shores. And Benedini is typically more of an ocean-going shark, so they're way out there feeding on whales and bigger mammals out there. So it's just so rare for anything that far out to come into us.
But if you come into the info center, we'll show you. We've got a couple of
some nice
Benedinis. Yeah.
Was that a bigger shark then, if that lives out further?
I don't know if it was bigger or
I
not.
think it was a bit bigger, but figure out something to
We'll
compare
check
it to.
the app.
Yeah.
I wish on these.
Good, thank
Did the
you.
next one get
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a different one.
Yeah, I've got that
Not
up
just
here. Or I had it somewhere.
It looks similar.
One point that Steve made that I think is good, I don't know if everyone knows, but like with the shark, can have between 3,000 and 30,000 teeth in his mouth. It's a little bit like us with the baby teeth, and the teeth kind of keep rotating through, so they lose their teeth. And that's another reason why we find so many, because they had so many teeth. And that's another reason why you find so few of some of the other fossils, like the whale tooth, because they only have 5 or 6, I guess, teeth. And so you don't have that massive supply, which in my opinion makes your things like your pectins and some of the other fossils more rare because the quantity is so much smaller that you're going from.
Can you talk a little bit about where the teeth are located in the jaw? They're slightly different and identifying them?
They're all different shapes. Stephen could probably talk about that a little bit.
To answer your question real quick about the Benedini size, they grow up to 25 feet long, so they grow about as big as a great white can. But yeah, they're one of the big ones for sure. So different teeth, and some species like the hemiprecis, they have completely different upper and lower teeth.
Which is
the
that
lower
one?
teeth. If you got a picture. Yeah, so that would be an upper tooth there. A lot more serrated. The lower teeth look actually a lot more like a sand tiger tooth. It's just, one long point. And it's going to be a lot more rare to find a lower tooth of any species because typically sharks' feeding process is their lower jaw grabs while their top jaw shreds. So their top jaw, the shredding motion, they lose a lot of their teeth. And that's why the bottom teeth are a lot more rare.
And the bottom ones often look more like spikes, so they stab the thing on this spiky, tooth.
Okay.
And then the top teeth like that are more scrapey. Anything else about sharks? All right. So then the Ice Age fossils are all the other. We have a case, we call it the Cabinet of Curiosities, and it's really just all of these other fossils that we have on the island. It's really spectacular because they came from this such an interesting time where there were beaver that were the size of bears. There were horses that were the size of dogs. We had giant sloths, mammoths, mastodons. There was just all these amazing cave bears that were 1,500 pounds. So just these really spectacular animals. And they left behind, their fossil remains that we could see. And one of the reasons we have so many of them here on the island, in Florida in general, is that during this period, the Ice Age, as the ice caps were forming, it froze and it became uninhabitable in the more northern regions of America. So those animals came down to Florida, kind of like what's happening now. Northerners come down south. But at the very same time, this land bridge formed between South and North America, which allowed these exotic animals to come up from South America. And that's why we have camel and tapir and some of these other sort of, can't think of any other ones there. But all these kind of interesting animals. So we were really at this crossroads where animals were coming up. We were at a migration route, coming up and going down. And it's just so lucky, that we can go on the beach and find these spectacular things just because, this was a migration route.
What did the tapir look like? Was it like an anteater kind of thing?
Yeah, like a cross between an anteater and a pig. It was a really funny looking animal. I'd love to get pictures of all of them and have
I
them.
was thinking about that.
Yes,
Get
yes.
some pictures.
And Steve has been working on that in the app to show you pictures of the animals, which is really cool.
That's kind of hard though, being that it's so old, right?
Yeah.
Being that
Yeah, so it's interpretations a lot of time where the scientists, and they reconstruct them and so on. Trying to think, is there anything else about megafauna fossils? Any other questions about them?
How does the megafauna match with these?
I don't have a chart for the megafauna yet, and that's the next thing I'm working on, the miscellaneous fossil one. So our artist is working on doing a painting so that we have a chart for those. But those are all like more in this range, so they're more current. Yeah. And that's actually, when man was around too at that time. So it's kind of an interesting thing to think about man with these, 500-pound beavers strolling around and, what it was like, for them. All right. And we touched on this, but just to kind of connect the dots. So we have a lot of fossils because of that land bridge that we talked about, the fact that the migration happened because of the, cooling. I didn't actually say this, but when the ice caps formed, they basically sucked up the water, so you ended up having a lot more dry land. And Florida was quite big then, it was like twice the size that it is now. But then when the ice caps melted, Florida got completely covered. And there was a sea that went all the way from Maryland down to Georgia. So it was this big bay that they call the Atlantic Coastal Plain. So it would fill up with water, recede, fill up and recede. And that's another reason why we have all those great fossils with, land and sea animals. The other thing is we have St. Mary's River, just geographically, the mouth of the river deposits fossils in the north part of our island. So you have a lot of fossils just coming in there. And then we have the submarine base in St. Mary's, so they're dredging that for the submarine, so it's stirring things up. and those teeth are coming up. We also have the Cumberland Sound being so deep, it's had for millennia, sharks have been there. And I don't recommend swimming there. Anybody's don't go swimming there. Yeah, sharks on the north and gators on the west, yeah. It's best avoided. But that's one reason too, the fact that sharks have so many teeth, they were there for millennia, and then we're storing them up constantly. I did want to say one thing, the dredging has been great for us in terms of fossils historically, because it stirs things up. But what's happening now is there's a new type of dredging machine that they've recently introduced, and the screens in this dredger are 3/4 of an inch. Previously they were 2 inches, so you would have, trying to think of a good, like maybe the whale's tooth. You know, this would not go through a screen now. So what's going to happen when they dredge and they're filtering the material out, this is going to get blocked. When it didn't in the past. We can't stop this dredging from happening, but we really want to work with officials to make sure it's supervised, make sure that it's done properly, that when things are filtered, you know, the fossils and other animals are put back. So that's something that we've been working on.
Did you have a lot of things found on the dredging that was going on this summer?
People have not found much at all. And that's really typical, is that right after dredging, you know, things get covered with sand. And then as the sand gets washed away, then you find more because, you know, they had these larger screens and things got through and put back on the beach. But I think that's been the difference this time, is because of these smaller screens, things just, you know, it's just not, it's putting sand back. And it's putting back really nice sand. They call it sugar sand. Because of these really small screens, you know, the sand is soft and nice, but it's, you know, it's at the expense of our fossils.
What happens to the stuff that it gets screened out? Is it back in the ocean? Is it, because, you know, when I was out there, it looked like they were putting stuff in big roll-off boxes or dumpsters. It looked like it was maybe coarser material.
Yeah.
And that could have been some of the stuff.
It absolutely is, you're right. A lot of people have told us they've seen that. So those dumpsters are meant to be put back on the beach. So they filter those dumpsters for like unexploded ammunition and dangerous things. And you know, put those back on the beach. But we're not seeing that, let me put that differently. We've had people recording where the dumpsters have been removed from the island. So they are sometimes getting removed. We've had people record other times where they've taken the dumpsters and poured them on the beach. So, you know, that's why we're saying, let's get some supervision, let's watch it.
You mentioned Cumberland Sound and St. Mary's. How about the southern end of the island, Nassau Sound? Are there any fossils found in that area?
You know, it's such a great question, because there's a number of experts we work with who've been hunting for 30 years, you know, and their family, you know, hunted. And apparently the south end of the island used to be really good for fossils. And I don't know what the difference is, if it's the currents. I do find as in the winter, fossils are further down south, whereas in the summer, they're up north, and I think that's currents and winds and things like that. But Hurricanes, yes. Yeah. But typically I'd say maybe in the last 5 or 10 years, people really haven't been finding much on the south end, except around the Omni where they sprinkle them in the sand. Yeah, I know it's true, because they asked us if we had any spare that they could use.
The beach replenishments that we do every 10 years or so, is there any protection in that to make sure that, you know, things aren't just getting dumped, or?
There's not. There's not protection now, and there really should be. And you just put your finger right on it. What we would really like is to have a standard, so we don't have to go and, you know, fight every time this happens and say, you know, do this, do that, you know, look after that. But have a standard, and it should be across all of our beaches, you know, about the way that the machine is configured so that the screens are proper, that they're not filtering out live animals, that they're, you know, careful where they're sampling and everything. So, yeah. All right. So, how do you know if something's a fossil? This is like our $1 million question. People are asking, is this a fossil? And it's just so it's heartbreaking when you get little kids and Isabel. This happened with Isabel. Somebody brings in a piece of shell and they say, is this a fossil? And you're like, no, it's not, you know. But then Isabel did come in and had found some fossils, which she'll bring and show us later, and had picked up turtle shell, you know, and found some cool fossils. So it's just been marvelous having, especially the kids. But a lot of times, for me, the most rewarding thing has been people who come and they say, oh, I can't find any fossils. You know, I look like it, you know, I can't find them, and we help them and we tell them where to look. You know, how to identify. One of the biggest things is just actually looking at them so you know what you're looking for. You know, so helping people, and then to have them come back like the next day or a few days later and say, I found one, you know, and they're so excited. That is like incredibly rewarding and really exciting. The other thing is on the beach, you got the app, so you can take the app. If you find something, you know, see if it looks like something in the app. Our advice is if you find anything weird shaped, just keep it, because, you know, lots of times it is a fossil. This is kind of the $1 million question that everybody asks us. You know, where do I find them? What's the best place? You know, do I need equipment? You know, that kind of thing. And first I should say, when we look for fossils, so we're not diving, we're not screening, we're not doing anything crazy. We're just walking along the beach and looking to see what we find. So as I said, you know, just having a sense for what you're looking for is really, really helpful. So, you know, all those things that we passed around, now you know if you find something long and pokey shaped, you know that maybe it's a whale tooth, and you know, and you collect it, and you can look in the app or you could bring it in to us. So that's one of the things. Another thing, another tip is to be conscious of the tides and get the tide to work for you. So lots of times when you're just walking along the beach, if you go just a few feet down from a shell bed along the water will just pull through that shell bed and bring fossils to you. Yeah, it's just beautiful. So you don't even have to work. You can just kind of, I know people who ride on their bikes and they find them, you know, just riding along. Because the waves are doing that action for you. So that's one of the other tips. One thing we also like to do is, and this works, so many fossil people that I've talked to have said this, and it is stopping to reset your eyes by looking for trash. And I do this constantly because once you're looking, and I'm the biggest guilty of this because I'm looking for pectins. So I'm walking along and I'm just looking for this shape. And I'm missing everything else. I'm stepping over your shark's teeth, you know, any other cool fossil. I probably would step over the mammoth because I'm just looking for that. So one thing that's really great is to just stop, look for trash for a minute, you reset your eyes, and then you have kind of fresh eyes and you're looking on, and then you're cleaning up the beach too. So it's kind of a win-win there. Am I missing anything? I didn't say, we kind of touched on it, but most of their fossils, if you visit Clay at Fort Clinch, yeah. So the north end of the island, for a number of reasons, is, you know, is typically the best fossil hunting. So that's a great place to start. And the other thing is, the thing that I learned as I looked for the pectins and started finding fossils is really just exploring the beach. It's more about hunting and exploring and seeing what you can find than it is, you know, I'm going to find a fossil, I'm looking for these black triangles, but it's like, okay, what's on the beach? What are the conditions? If I look at the real high tide line up top, I'll find these miniature little pectins. You'll find fossilized windletrap shells. You find all kinds of cool little things really on that high rack line. But then, you know, you come down a little bit further or go to a different bay where there's more mud. You'll find fragile shells there, fragile fossils. They don't get smashed against, you know, the rocks. And that's another thing that Stephen always tells people is fossils end up in the same, they're grouped by size. And Chris will tell you this too. Chris is our, he takes guided fossil hunts, which is awesome because it'll help you understand where to look and so on. But one of the tricks is you're not going to find your big teeth if you're in a shell line that has a whole bunch of little things. So go to where you're seeing the bigger shells, your oyster shells. Stephen has a technique where he goes along right on the water edge when the water is just shaking up those really big shell beds, and that's where he finds the big teeth. I myself don't like fighting with the water, so I'll wait until lower tide, until the water's passed, and then I hunt around like the rocks, because things get caught around the rocks or in little tide pools. So it's just kind of exploring and getting to know the beach and what you can find in different spots. I think that was it. Any questions about that? 2 more slides. Okay, I better finish. So we can do more conversation. So this is the other big question is I found these things, what do I do with them? And that's been a real fun thing for us is providing frames for people and really giving people the venue to express themselves with fossils. We've got a lot of great artists who do beautiful work with fossils, containers for storing fossils like these little frames that we passed around. And then we also have classes where people can make their own gear. So you can bring in your fossils and make little display containers, or these that we call loot jars, which are just Publix pill containers that you kind of keep in your pocket and, you know, put your fossils in when you find them. All right, that's it. We made it. Question?
Will you tell people about the horse teeth? Because this was something that I didn't know until I started working with you guys. I thought all the horse teeth you got on the beach were like from Cumberland. Also, of course we find horse teeth. We have Cumberland. And I was like, oh, that's not true.
Yeah. No, it's not true. So as we touched on earlier, a lot of the horses were these 3-toed horses that were the size of dogs. So they were really little. But then there were horses here natively, and when we talked about that ice age, a lot of the horses migrated south. And so the horses died out here. And a lot of people think that the horses were introduced by the Europeans, but originally they were here and they were kind of reintroduced. So that's one of the reasons why we have those teeth. And we also have horse toe bones, which is just a really cool thing. So we can show those to you. It's just kind of a neat thing that those horses had toe bones. Anything else?
My association with museum began when I found what I thought was a turtle shell, or a turtle fossil, and I brought it here to the museum, and they confirmed that it was indeed a turtle fossil.
Very cool.
And do you have any pictures of that or anything like that? Or would they be land or sea?
Oh, you know, that's a good question because there were both land and sea turtles, you know, historically. Mostly what we find are the sea turtle shells, and we find 2 varieties. There's a soft shell and then the hard shell one. I don't know if we brought any with us.
There are some more fossils floating around still. I don't know if it was turtle shell. It'd be one of the long ones.
Well, at the end, everybody's welcome to come up and we'll show you what we've got.
I'm sure some of you have some, and we can use that as a reference.
And the whale's ear bone, is that yellow stuff earwax?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question.
The orange stuff on there is actually rust. It's iron oxide. So fossils get their color from the sediment that they lay in. So we see a lot of teeth. A lot of fossils will have some orange kind of stuff going onto it or in it, and that's from the iron oxide in the sediment here.
Although earwax just so sound. I think we're gonna say maybe earwax. So if anybody has any fossils they'd like us to ID, you're welcome to come on up. You're also welcome to come up and check the whalebone and the mastodon too. Oh, good point, yes.
Now listen up, everybody, for the location.
Yeah, so before we close, we're at 508 Ash Street. You're welcome to come on down. We'd love to see you and see what you've got.
Yes.
Thank you.